Hello and welcome to week 10 of the Brit Iron Fantasy Show. I'm your host James, and as ever, I'm joined by my good mates, Matt and Sam. Now before we get into the main crux of this episode, just like to mention the UKTouchdown.com. It's a great source for signed college and NFL memorabilia in the UK. Everything on the website is 100% legit, it's fully certified, so you know exactly what you're getting for your money. There's absolutely some brilliant deals on there, as well as some articles that are written by the owner Ian that make for some great reading. So be sure to go over and check out the UKTouchdown.com. Right, Matt, my guy this week was a bit of a controversial one, if you like, for reasons maybe people can guess. But let us know what happened, Matt.
Well, Sam, getting a bit desperate, I think, after coming back from 2 to being tied with me at 1. He saw the low-hanging fruit and thought, you know what, I'm going to go beyond that. I'm just going to blatantly cheat, just try and slip one past the lads. During the episode, we just sort of let it slide. We thought, didn't think Todd Gurley was outside of being a running back 1, but we'll trust Sam. He must have looked up his stats probably.
I hadn't.
Yep.
I messed up.
So
I messed up. I was looking. Yeah, my bad.
So, I mean, Sam would have won. Todd Gurley, RB13. So even on a poor week, by his standards so far this season. For context, James had David Johnson, RB61. Obviously went out injured, concussion protocol. Always a risk with David Johnson. It's going to happen. James just got the unlucky game this year where he ended up out of the game. Chase Edmonds for me, RB21. Pretty disappointing on what I think people were expecting from him last week, getting the chance as the RB1 there for the Cardinals. But we'll have to see what happens with that. It was against a tough Miami defense. He might not be the only one to have a less than expected performance. But in terms of the scores, obviously with me coming second, middle spot, nothing changes on my score. I'm not going to gift myself the win just because we're disqualifying Sam. I'll play it fair. What we are doing, however, is James doesn't lose a point. Sam does instead. So, James stays on -1. It's still within reach this week for him to get back to that 0. Sam is now on 0, and now I'm in the lead on 1. So it's competitive. It's all to play for. Just, as long as people follow the rules. Just, don't try and cheat. But to get into it, hopefully fact-checked, locked and loaded, Sam's my guy for this week. Who have you picked?
So, my guy this week, I think it might be an idea, as I'm about to tell you who this is. Maybe I need one of you to fact-check it for me. I have double-checked.
Oh, not again.
I am pretty certain that this guy wouldn't be cheating. I believe my pick is actually at wide receiver 21 on the year. I like his matchup this week, and I'm taking Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. I think he's got a great matchup in Detroit. They've got some kind of inexperienced cornerbacks. They're not playing well. They're not playing great defense. And I think just with how well Dalvin Cook's playing, they're going to have to give a lot of attention to Dalvin Cook, which is just going to free up the shots down deep. And the thing with Justin Jefferson is he is one of those guys who he is only ever a play away from having a big fantasy week and having a good week. He might only have 3 receptions, but one of them could be for 80 yards and a touchdown. So whilst I'd say this is probably kind of one of those long shots at having a boom week, I'm liking the matchup and I'm liking Justin Jefferson this week.
And yes, got the all clear from James there. You saw him fact check. That's all good. I mean, it's a tough matchup against those Bears. It's a tough defense. But with Justin Jefferson and his garbage time shenanigans, he could always put up those massive points in the fourth quarter. So I like that one.
Sorry,
James.
I think I said the Lions as well, didn't I? It is the Bears.
It is, yeah.
Isn't it?
It was playing the Bears.
I think I
So
was wrong game there, but I'm sticking with Justin Jefferson because I do like the matchup just because Dalvin Cook is playing so well.
yeah, 100%. I mean, you've picked a guy that fits within the rules this time, so we'll excuse the little matchup slip there. It's all good. James, who's your my guy, though? Are you sticking with your usual trend at the moment?
Well, those who know me know that I am a creature of habit. And of course, as you alluded to there, Matt, the trend for me this season is just picking players that play against the Seahawks. And I've done the same this week as well. So my guy for week 10 is Robert Woods. Currently wide receiver 16 on the season in half-point PPR. So probably one of the highest I've picked so far this season.
Yeah.
But he's playing against the Seahawks. Worst pass defense in the league. Absolutely terrible this year. 362.1 passing yards allowed per game on average. The next closest is the Falcons with 310. So there's a big 52 yard difference between the worst and the second worst. So, I mean, just shows how terrible they are. So, of course, I'm going to try just absolutely infiltrate that defense and pick up guys where I can. And, Cooper Kupp is looking like he's going to be questionable for this week as well, which leads me to believe that maybe Robert Woods will get a bit more action. And as a player, has a lot of upside as well. He's got 4 touchdowns on the year with 436 yards, which is quite good for what it is. He's averaging about 55 yards per game, but I strongly believe he'll get a lot more this game. Yeah. And he's also got a small part to play in the rushing game too. He's scored 2 touchdowns this season just doing that. So there's a lot of value there in the rushing game and the passing game. So therefore, continuing the trend of the season, perfect storm, Robert Woods this week.
Love that. I think it's a solid pick. I think, especially, between him and Cooper Kupp, if both fully healthy, it's a complete who's your guy sort of situation. You could pick either and justify it. I think, Kupp being questionable, which is a great lock for this week. I was debating Jared Goff, but I was like, we'll keep it out of the same game. We won't overlap there. I think with Goff, a little bit more risk because we've seen it normally is sort of that first couple drives, that first quarter, you know what Goff you're getting. And I just don't want that feeling if we get the wrong Goff. That I'm like, well, there goes my guy for this week. But saying that, I mean, I haven't exactly gone for a locked and loaded one either. I mean, I've been known for a bit of low-hanging fruit this season, and I think going with the RB43 on the year, I am not at all doing that this week. I've stayed close to home with this one, going for one of the Bucks. It's out of that backfield. I'm looking at Leonard Fournette. So, him and Jones, neither have looked great the last 2 weeks. If you add up their scores, you might be kind of happy with what you're seeing in fantasy from your running back. But I think gradually Jones is starting to lose this backfield, and anytime he makes a mistake, we all know what Arians is like. You're out. You're done. Then Fournette's the RB1 in that team. The big thing is the Panthers that we're playing against this week. They just give up fantasy points to running backs. The big thing as well, they have allowed a league-high 63 receptions to running backs this year. Fournette is coming out as the pass-catching back for Brady. I think this is going to be an offense that wants to get back on track after just getting beaten and embarrassed by the Saints. Also, Panthers allowing 4.5 yards per carry and a touchdown every 21 carries to running backs. So the stats all point towards one of these guys having a big week. And I'm just going with the slightly safer bet of Fournette because I think potentially one drop from Jones and he's gone. And even if Jones has a solid game, we saw it in the last matchup against the Panthers. That sort of end of the third quarter for the whole fourth, Fournette just then gets the ball and he gets to run against a tired defense. That happened last time and he was the RB3 when we played the Panthers earlier in the season. So I think that's maybe the ceiling. Not expecting it to be that, but I think a very solid week from him here.
Good pick, that.
Yeah, I really like that pick. And going back to Sam's pick, when he said the Vikings, I just assumed he was going to pick Dalvin Cook.
I think we'd clock on to that one.
Justin Jefferson is the logical play here. I think he's locked and loaded. Definitely going to be a top 4 receiver on the week.
Yep, you can certainly see it happening. You can certainly see it happening for all these picks, perhaps. But it's good to see the scores are really close together. I know you sort of mentioned it at the top there, Matt, but we're now week 10, and the difference between first and last is only 2 points. So it's quite an open competition right now, which is great.
Could be a 1 week flip.
Yeah, exactly.
Potential that we're all on 0 going into week 11, depending on how this all turns out. So,
which would be crazy.
All be to play for.
We've had a solid front 9. Let's hope the back 9 is back 9, back 8.
Yeah, I like the reference you're for Masters weekend and all, but it's a stretch.
It was a loose one, that one.
There, but,
very loose on that one.
Let's just hope the etiquette's better than last week, Sam. Keep it in the books.
Yep, that's what we love to see. Right, let's move things on to the start-sit questions for this week. I believe we've only got 2 this week, but there are some meaty questions to get our teeth stuck into. So what we got, Matt?
So, going to be throwing it across. I think we've got one from Instagram. There is a little backstory to this one. It is someone in the Lister League. So, we've been keeping an eye on this team this season. But it's a bit more heated than that. We're playing them this week. We'll run through our lineup at the end of this episode. But they've come to us for start-sit advice when we're playing them. So it's an interesting strategy. We'll see how much integrity we have here at the Brit Iron and what advice we give. But Sam, lead us into the question.
Yeah, so as you mentioned there, Matt, it's coming in from Adam McGuinness, who is our matchup in the Listener League this week, and we do need to win at this point in our Listener League. So, Adam, you're putting us on the spot, but we'll help you out anyway because that's what we're here to do. So Adam wants to know, should he be starting Darius Slayton, obviously of the Giants playing the Eagles, Rashard Higgins, the Browns taking on the Texans, or Darnell Mooney of the Bears taking on the Vikings? So James, where's your head rolling with this one?
Well, initially I was thinking Darnell Mooney. And this was on the basis that Darius Slayton had Sterling Shepard alongside him. Because when Sterling Shepard came back, you saw Slayton's usage go down a little bit. And that made me a little bit nervous. And, of course, Rashard Higgins as well against the Texans. That one's a bit more of a coin flip. But Darnell Mooney against the Vikings. Vikings have got the third worst pass defense in the league. He's got the highest snap count share out of all these three players. So I thought that was a good little play to make. But Darius Slayton with Sterling Shepard out is a whole different conversation for me. And I believe he is good enough to get the work done. He's going to get the targets this week for sure. Now the Eagles' pass defense, they are probably the best out of the three this week. But being the wide receiver one and being as talented as he is, I think he should be the play for this week.
That's interesting because I think for me, when I read this, Mooney was my first scratch. There is a lot of upside and opportunity. I wouldn't be sure if he has an alright week, but I just don't like that offense. I don't like Foles throwing him that ball. And even if, who knows, this game could be the one where they switch it about. If they're in this game and Foles isn't playing well, maybe Trubisky gets rolled back out. I'm just avoiding that situation for now. So for me, it comes down to Slayton and Higgins. I think you've got... It's difficult. With Higgins, there is upside against that Texans team. We've just seen the Jags be able to pass the ball and move the ball on them. And even with OBJ out, sort of he's now crept up the depth chart a bit, but there's just too many names ahead of him. Whereas for Slayton, as you said, with Shepard out, he's there. Well, he's out pretty much for him and Ingram, and we don't know what's going on with Golden Tate. He's the go-to. Jones is going to be staring him down, looking for him on that field. So I think just on volume, for me, I've got to go with Darius Slayton here.
Yeah, I think that's...
feel quite comfortable with it.
I think that's 3 for 3 there. We'd all take Slayton in this scenario. The thing again, kind of mirroring what you said there, Matt. Darnell Mooney, there is the opportunity there, but I just don't think any of us really like this Bears offense good enough. And the Vikings are a team that are on the up, as James mentioned in the podcast. He did there. I don't see him having a great week. Rashard Higgins, again, there is the potential, but if Chubb is back, like they're potentially saying that Chubb might be back, then they've got all the running backs, and they're not going to need to throw the ball much. They will throw the ball on third down when they absolutely have to Jarvis Landry and to the tight ends, and they will get first downs. But predominantly, this is a running team. So if I'm taking a 1 week stab in the dark at any one of these players, it's Darius Slayton, because I think he's got the best opportunity to have a good week. Having said that, these are the kind of players that all of them could just come down to who scores the touchdown at the end of the week.
Yeah. I think as well with the Bears, something to watch, obviously, with everything going on with Montgomery. If Montgomery's out and the Vikings potentially get up in this like I'd expect, and the Bears are sort of chasing, suddenly there could be a ton of value there if they're just chasing a game. Something to watch for, but still, if Foles chasing a game doesn't really get me too excited about fantasy prospects there. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard one to call though. I don't envy that decision, and I'm sort of glad it's against us this week because it's a risky one either way. But it's good to see we all agree for this one. But my question for this week comes from Instagram, comes from a guy called Andrew Allegra6 as his handle, and he asks whether he should start Lamar Jackson against the Patriots or Justin Herbert at the Dolphins. Sam.
This is a really interesting one. And I think this is one that I feel like I'm going to get bitten in the backside for this call. But I think Justin Herbert's the play here. I think Lamar Jackson against the Patriots, I think they're going to run the ball a lot. They will be able to run the ball quite comfortably. But also, there's a good chance that the Patriots' defense is well equipped to defend against Lamar Jackson. I mean, that defense practices week in, week out against Cam Newton, who is a mobile running quarterback. So it's not like they're going to be unprepared for that kind of quarterback-contained style defense. So with Lamar Jackson's kind of rushing baseline a bit lower to what it was last year, and with Justin Herbert just putting up numbers week in, week out, regardless of whether Herbert is winning games, he's putting up a lot of fantasy points and he's scoring a lot of passing touchdowns. Now, even against this Dolphins defense, which I know we've gone over a couple of times, is a good defense in the league, and they're, I think, top 5 in scoring, in kind of scoring defenses, allowing the 5th fewest points in the league. I still think this is a game Justin Herbert puts up a lot of points, so I'm taking Herbert.
This is a really difficult one for me. I think anyone that's listened, I'm pretty high on Herbert. Got him in our dynasty. I think that's the most fruitful pick I've made in a while. In any sort of fantasy format, it's working out nicely. But for me, this really is difficult because I also like going with a quarterback with a rushing baseline. I think there can be so much value in that. And as much as the Patriots can practice against it, I think at this point in their careers, it's very different defending against Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton.
Yeah.
As much as they both are mobile, it's a different style of running. I think Cam Newton's a bit more downhill, whereas Lamar Jackson's just going to juke you out your shoes and leave you with broken ankles. So, for me, it just comes down to the defenses. And I think the Dolphins are a much better defense than the Patriots this year. And the fact that the Jets just put up, 27 odd points on this Patriots team makes me think this Ravens team can get up, get ahead, and then you're just going to see the Ravens run the ball hard. And I think part of that will go through Lamar Jackson because we've seen points, maybe going back to last season a bit more, but he's the RB1 on that team when they need him to be in terms of the rushing yards and the rushing stats. And I think if he can do that for me from the quarterback position and maybe air it out a couple times here and there, that's enough to lock it up. But I won't be shocked if Herbert wins this either. It's a really tough one, but I think I'd lean Lamar Jackson. But I think they'll both probably be, I'd say almost definitely QB1s on the week, and I'd argue maybe both top 8. So you can't really go wrong here, mate, I don't think.
So it's down to you, James.
Oh, the deciding vote. The first time this season I get the deciding vote. Yeah, everything you said there, both of you, you can't argue against it. For me, the game script against the Patriots is going to heavily favour the running backs more.
Yeah.
Gus the Bus, J.K. Dobbins, and Mark Ingram coming back this week as well. So I feel like that will hinder Jackson's ceiling a little bit more. And he will run it as well, but I think it won't be as heavy reliant on him. And at the end of the day, Justin Herbert against this Dolphins team is going to be a shootout, in my opinion. And you want every bit of share in a quarterback who's going to be in a shootout. Especially when the under-over was so high for that game. I think it was around 55 or something like that. So
yeah, very true. Yeah.
Even Vegas are looking for that to be a high one. So for that reason, I give my deciding vote to Justin Herbert. And
small victories for Sam.
I mean, not yet. I've got him in fantasy, so I'm happy as well.
No,
yeah, the right call there.
I'm going to be losing in Dynasty this week.
Oh, it's painful to watch. But let's move on to the Listen League part of this episode, and let's see what team we're going to be lining up against Adam McGuinness, who of course just sent us in a question earlier as well.
Yeah, so I think we kept it pretty simple this week. Couple moves for us to make. We did try and go in for Duke Johnson in our league. There was 2 bids. We went in with 4 fab of our remaining, I think, 16 at the time. Someone went in with 6. That's fine. That was sort of us looking for maybe a 1-week plug-and-play start, help us get the win. So sort of nothing too much lost there. We've got a lot of depth in at running back, so not the end of the world. Did need to bring in a tight end with Hayden Hurst out on his bye week. So we got Dallas Goedert in, going up against the Giants. I think it was me and James had a big debate over this one, looking down that list, that there was no one that really inspired a ton of confidence, but I know there's a few other names we were looking at. Was there anyone else that caught your eye, James, or what was the sort of thought behind Goddard for this one?
It really felt like looking at sort of the tight end tiers, and Dallas Goedert was just like just slightly above, a tier above all the other ones on these lists. It was a bit more dependable. We did talk sort of about Jordan Reed and Tyler Higbee, Trey Burton as well, but we just had a bit more confidence with this pickup of Dallas Goedert. Just being as well as Zach Ertz out, it should be a favourable position for him to be in.
Yeah, I think there's upside in how they like to scheme that offense. Ertz or Goddard, they kind of seem to always get work. It's quite a reliable, that tight end one in Philly just seems to be decent as long as Carson Wentz doesn't have a mare. So that's what we're kind of bargaining that one around. But jumping in sort of more towards the lineup in the specifics, then we've got 3 backs, all questionable going into this. Kenyon Drake, Joe Mixon, David Montgomery. So that's something we're all going to be watching, I think, Sunday morning when we wake up, see what we're being told. Are they playing? Are they sitting? What's going on there? So this could change. We're kind of keeping it a little bit liquid at the moment. But we've got Goff back in, starting at quarterback against the Seahawks. Hopefully that is going to be just a money start for us. I think this could be one of those big Goff games where he looks good. Moving it through,
Yep.
James Robinson. He's been, I think, one of our most reliable. I think he's one of those guys we don't really think about each week now. He's kind of just set in as one of our main running backs. And then it gets a little bit more difficult. We've got Fournette in currently. I think I'm high on him going into this week, but it is a risk. You never know. It could just be all Rojo. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But also, that's a guy that, with Kenyon
almost made
Drake,
it through a whole episode without that.
And it wasn't
Can't
me
make
as
it
well.
through. You got to drop it somewhere. But as we said, with Drake and Montgomery floating on the bench, I think it's going to be a game time decision for us on that one. Moving it through, Corey Davis, been solid all season, let us down last week. Hoping he brings some upside alongside Cooks at our wide receiver spots. As we mentioned, Goddard in at tight end. And then currently the flex, which is where we could see all change. We've got Christian Kirk sat there purely on time of game. I think if we take out a receiver, it's more likely to be Corey Davis than Christian Kirk. But that's one we're watching. Bernard currently sat in as our last flex, but obviously if Mixon plays, Mixon jumps in. Against that Steelers defense, though, I'm not expecting fireworks from either of these guys. Going to be a tough one for us in that front. Yeah. And then keeping it consistent, Blankenship and the Bucks in at kicker and defense. So pretty standard lineup for us now across the last couple of weeks. Starting to think settle into it. Kind of got our receivers set a bit more early in the year, obviously with Odell and T.Y. Hilton. We had a lot of just getting let down. I think we got some good upside guys. So how are you feeling going into this week, lads, against Adam McGuinness? What are we thinking?
Good. Good. I mean, he's already crying for our help, so
yeah,
it'll be even more satisfying when we beat him.
It does depend if he takes our advice or not. I think that's the key thing here, and it could work either way. Who knows?
I'll actually be so upset if he plays Slayton and then Slayton wins him the week.
He's currently got Mooney in as we sit here on Thursday, so we'll see if that gets swapped around. But
we'll have to wait and see.
Interesting one.
We'll have to wait and see how much he values our opinion.
We'll have to wait and see.
We're watching you, mate. Look out, Adam. We're checking what you're doing. But yeah, this is a must-win week for us, I think, at the end of the day. And we need to get back to a winning record soon enough. Otherwise, we're just going to run out of games, and this has got to be the starting point. But feeling confident about this week for sure. So hopefully the boys can pull through.
Exactly.
But unless you boys have any other points to raise, then unfortunately that is all we got time for today. So as ever, be sure to go over to YouTube, go like, comment and subscribe. Be sure to turn on the notification bell as well. That will let you know when we've posted an episode. Also check us out on Twitter and Instagram. We are at the Brit Iron. Go get involved in the conversation on both those platforms. And every Tuesday we post out a question, the start-sit question, for you guys to send in your questions if you rather. So make sure you go send those in to us on a Tuesday before we record on a Wednesday. But for now, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.